All right, and thank you everyone again for coming. So I'll go ahead and take our introductions today to our guest speaker, Lindsay Pierce. I'm Ashley McCorrell-Powell. I'm one of the Tribal Water Security Project team members today. You've just heard from Claire McDonald, Damaris Tubuk, and we also have our principal investigator, Clarita Left-Hand Bagay, on the call as well today. But we wanted to welcome you all to our guest speaker, Lindsay Pierce, who was born and raised in Seattle, Washington. Lindsay moved to Colorado and in 2010 earned a bachelor's in anthropology with a minor in French from Fort Lewis College. Lindsay lived in Durango, Colorado for close to 12 years with a 1-year hiatus back in Washington before moving to Juneau, Alaska. Lindsay began working with the Tlingit and Haida Indian tribes of Alaska at the end of 2017. And since joining the team there in their Lands and Resource Department has grown its projects and they've progressed far and wide. Lindsay is working on a harmful algal bloom and paralytic shellfish poison project with the Environmental Protection Agency's Indian Environmental General Assistance Program, otherwise known as IGAP, the Transboundary Water Quality Project with the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, or the BIA, and a greenhouse project with the BIA and the Native American Agriculture Fund. In addition to this, she also works on the Disaster and Resiliency Expo with the EPA Environmental Justice Program, which Lindsay started. During this webinar, Lindsay's focus of her work will be again on the harmful algal bloom monitoring program and the Transboundary Water Quality Monitoring Program that allows her to work in collaboration with local tribes across Southeast Alaska's watersheds, and that is funded by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Thank you so much, Lindsay, and you're welcome to start.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Lindsay Pierce. I'm an environmental specialist with Tlingit Haida here in Juneau. Today, I will be going over 2 of our programs that I work on, and we're just going to dive right into the Transboundary program. A brief history of the project. We started sampling in 2015. I think we started on the Taku and the Stikine. The Unic we have not started yet. It is still in the works, but we have also in 2018, we started in Haines, and I think we also started in Yakutat in 2017. At the bottom, you'll see how many samples we've done to date. That is updated. Even during COVID, we had sampling going on. Even though we weren't traveling, we contracted our sampling out to our tribal partners in those communities that we go to. So the Stikines in Wrangell, and Taku's here in Juneau, the Klihini and Chilkat are in Haines, and the Alsek is in Yakutat, or outside of Yakutat. Just a quick idea or picture for you guys to see a visual of the watersheds that we sample in. At the top, you'll see the Alsek River watershed. Haines is right. Do I have a pointer on here?
We can see your cursor.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
So Haines is right there, the Chilkat and the Klihini. This is Juneau, the Taku River, and the Stikine is actually down here by Wrangell. This is the Unic that we are trying to sample. It's a very remote area, so it's hard to get to. So all the rivers we sample have mines in Canada, upstream, and the water flows into Alaska. That's why it's called Transboundary. Some of our goals are to be able to have defensible baseline water data for these watersheds in case anything ever happens. We can say, we've been sampling on these rivers. This is what it was before your spill or whatever happens. We also are learning a lot while we're sampling on these rivers. The communities, they're more reassured that we are doing this work, because you'll see in the communities is a lot of, it's kind of like half and half. Some are pro mine, some are against the mine. And it's just kind of a reassurance for that community of what's going in their water now. Our data is not public yet. We are working on it. We are working with some of our colleagues, Chris Whitehead and John Harley. They created a data program that we are going to start inputting our data here shortly. Some of our objectives, we do monthly samples. We try to stick to that as close as we can. The ALSEC is also a very remote area, and about 38 people live there last I heard. So it's really only accessible from May to October, and we have to go by their schedules. So that one is not year round. The Chilkat and the Klahini are accessible by road, so we try and do those every month. And we have contracted out with Takshnik Watershed Council and Chilkoot Indian Association and Chilkat Indian Village. They go and do the water samples when we can't get up there, but they also go with us when we can. Stikine, the Wrangell Cooperative Association, they go with us when we do a sample. We are only 2 samples short to finish that data set, and it's in October and November. So that one requires a boat. So it's hard to get up there in October and November. It depends on when the ice is frozen. And so that's why we're still 2 samples short of that. Same with the Taku. The Taku we're 2 samples short, I believe. And that one is because the water flow, we go up the Taku by float plane. And when the water is flowing really fast, it's unsafe for us to land. So we need a boat to get up that one too. And it's been hard to find somebody that will take us up there. Let's see, I already covered that. These are the parameters we test for. pH, conductivity, salinity, dissolved oxygen temperature, and turbidity are done by our YSI machines. And then we use SGS Lab in Anchorage, and we send out for PAH, total sulfate, alkalinity, full suspended solids, organic carbon, ammonia. There's some that are not on there. We do mercury testing. We do 2 different mercury tests and a cyanide test. We also do sediment sampling on each river. We do 20% sediment sampling versus 100% of the water sampling. So if we have 5 samples of water, we'll do 1 sediment sample. So we try and get that scheduled accordingly throughout the year. These are just some sample photos. I'm normally behind the camera, so if you see a selfie, that's me. Sorry. We do sample 2 sites on each river except for the ALSEC. ALSEC, we only do 1 site. On each river, each of our sites is next to a USGS gauge. We do grab samples. The USGS, they also do samples, but they have fancy machines and they can do different points in the water at the same time. It's pretty cool. But we do grab samples, and we do surface level 5 feet and 10 feet. I never thought of a river being 10 feet deep until I started this project. It's kind of crazy being able to get a 10-foot deep sample in some of the rivers. We use the YSI meter and the turbidity meter, and we send our samples to SGS. This is the Stikine River. You'll see the green dots are our 2 sample sites, and it does say USGS gauge on there. This is our boat driver and Kathy Needham from Kai Environmental doing a sediment sampling. We get a bunch of scoops of sand after we've sanitized our equipment, and we mix it all together and we pour it in some jars and then send it off to the lab. And this is just a cool beach photo. It's foggy a lot in Wrangell and rainy a lot, but it's very pretty. The Taku here in Juneau, those are our 2 sample sites. You see this one is really just about a mile away from the border. we actually do get in the water here. That's Kenneth Weitzel, our natural resource specialist, and Catherine Erickson, who's no longer with Kai Environmental, but she was our prime leader. And then there's just one of the views from one of our sample sites down at the bottom. Taku is really pretty. We take the float plane up there, and so we get to fly over the ice fields, and it's amazing. There's the Alsek River in Yakutat. So you see these stars on the map. This is our sample site by the USGS gauge. This is where camp is, because so Yakutat, I think, is actually up here, and then we fly to Dry Bay, and this tent structure is our camp. On the left is sleeping quarters, and on the right is the kitchen. And this is our sampling crew out on the river. So we take the boat upriver to get to the sampling site, but to get to the boat launch area over here, we have to take this buggy thing that Jennifer's in, and it's driven by an ATV. So it's pretty fun. You see, we've seen a couple of brown bears. I feel very blessed to be able to go up there. It's one of my favorite locations. You're no cell phone service for at least 24 hours, and it's beautiful. The Chilkat and the Klahini in Haines. You'll see on the map. So Haines is down here, and then you go up a little bit more, and the ferry will take you to Skagway, but there's no road from Haines to Skagway. But we sample over here. Over here is the Klahini site, and just maybe a mile away is the sample site on the Chilkat. The Klahini is actually not a transboundary river. That was chosen because the river is by a bridge that is heavily used. And so the communities wanted to collect data from that and see if the traffic from the mine was affecting the river at all. So if you go up here, there's a road to the mine. The Unic and Ketchikan, I don't have any pictures. I haven't been up there. I think Ketchikan Indian Community has been up there for a sample with USGS, but we have not been able to go yet. But you'll see up the Unic, there are 3 active mines, those yellow dots right there, and then one up there. There is a 5th river. We also don't do the Salmon River. I did not put it on here. I don't know much about it. But after we look into the Unic, if we can get more funding for the Salmon River, that might be our next project. These are all, on the left, you'll find staff in our department, and Kathy Needham is the owner of Kai Environmental. You'll see all the tribes that we work with in each community. Takshanuk is the group that does the samples for us in Haines, and they take out Chilkat and Chilkoot with them. And then this is a Yakutat logo. On the shellfish. So CEDAR started as SEAT in 2015. It's a lab where we send our shellfish for paralytic shellfish testing and amnesic shellfish testing. We do a biomass survey with them every year, and we also do our water samples looking for harmful algal blooms. The website, I literally just took a screenshot from their website to get this map. Their website is cedar.org. Oh, I didn't know you could do that. Sorry. Cedar.org, you can look and see everybody's shellfish data. So as you can see, there's, I don't know if all 17 are listed, but there's 17 tribes that send their shellfish to the lab on a regular basis. Us at Tlingit Haida, we sample every 2 weeks, so every low tide cycle. And we have 2 sample sites. We sample Amalga Harbor and Point Louisa during the low tide, and during the wintertime, the better low tides are in the evening, so it's normally dark, And night digs can be kind of intimidating, but they're a lot of fun too. I'm getting off track. These are pulled from the CEDAR website. It's full of great information. You can go to the CEDAR website, or I can send them to you as well. There's harmful algal blooms and climate change. A little look, you can see amnesic shellfish poisoning. At the top is what the plankton actually looks like under the microscope. And then paralytic shellfish poisoning, that's from Alexandrium plankton. And I'll have a picture of that later. And then there's also two others that we look at here in Southeast. We look at Dinophysis. And on the left, you'll see little pictures of that. And then Heterosigma. I don't see that as much. I do see it once in a while. There are fun names. Kind of a microscope nerd. I really got into this when I first started. But fun ways to remember these are Alexandrium kind of looks like a hamburger if you tilt your head a little bit. It's like a hamburger with a tail. The amnesic shellfish poisoning is the pseudonychia, and it really just looks like a stick, but there's a cell in the middle, and that's how you tell it from other pieces of algae or anything in the scope. And Dinophysis is, the nickname is Kool-Aid Man. If you kind of look at it, you'll see it kind of looks like the symbol of the Kool-Aid Man. Here, it kind of just goes over what toxic shellfish are, what the plankton does, how it affects us. And in the middle is a picture of clams that we sample and can send to the CETER lab. We typically stick to these little necks, the butter clams, and the cockles. We also send in mussels. I don't know if this is in the way. And then here's that picture of Alexandrium. I can fit it on the other slide. And it kind of got contorted. But it does, you can see in this little area is the middle that kind of separates the buns. And then this is an example of our report that gets publicized every time we do a sample. So you'll see the numbers in the red. The federal limit for paralytic shellfish toxins is 80 micrograms per 100 grams of meat. So anything over 80 is going to be in the red. And then we would advise people not to eat them. We can't say you can't eat them or it's unsafe. We would just advise you not to. A lot of people that eat shellfish on a regular basis could have a different built-up immunity to the toxins. So it just varies. That's why we can't advise you not to. I think in the Philippines, they have an even lower federal level. I think theirs is 75 micrograms. So I mentioned a biomass survey earlier. This is Point Louisa, all these pictures. What a biomass survey is, we sample the beach. We sample, we do random holes, and we can't count every clam in that hole, weigh it, and measure it. It can take up to half a day depending on how many people you have. Our first year was kind of funny. I had to put the picture up. So up here is our first year we did a biomass at Point Louisa. I think it was 2018. But over here is where we used to dig when I first started with the program. And you can see those red dots mean no clams. We had 2 holes in this whole area where we normally get clams. It was just an off day or something, or wrong spots we dug. We only found 2 holes with clams. So that made us concerned that we were taking clams from a not very populated area. And John Harley was with us and helping us do the biomass. And he personally harvested over here down on the bottom left. So we did 3 spots, and we were pretty lucky finding clams there. So we switched our sample site to over here on the other side of the point. And that is where we continue to sample. Biomass surveys, like I said, they take a while. You're digging holes, weighing, measuring, and it's not always dry. You see this person is like shin deep in water because the tide was coming in, trying to finish that hole. We also, while we're doing a biomass survey, we also take about 30 clams of whatever species we find the most of. And these are all butter clams. We send them in to the CETER lab and they have people who age them. They're doing an aging survey of different clams from Southeast. You'll see here is kind of a staged photo. It's our scale and our transect. It's like 1.14 cubic feet square, cubic feet. So we lay it on the beach, we dig that whole square, and we go about a foot down. So it can take a while. And then beforehand, we also, we GPS point each hole. And so that's why it takes about half a day. These are our two partners from University in Southeast that helped us this year. This is Point Louisa and May. Jenny Eckert and Courtney Hart, they're amazing. And oh, I don't know if you guys have ever seen, but I threw it on here because I think it's really cool when I see it, is a starfish eating the clams. It's down at the bottom right. It's not something you find every time. So I think it's cool when we see that. These are just fun plankton photos. The one on my left is my favorite plankton because it looks so cool. It looks like a spaceship kind of, but that's Protoparadinium. It's not poisonous. It's just fun to look at. Here's the Dinophysis, the one that kind of looks like a Kool-Aid man. This is Lichmaphora. And here's the Alexandrium again. Kind of tilt your head. You can kind of see the hamburger. This is Catoceratus. It's not poisonous to us, but it's actually poisonous to salmon. So when we do see a bloom, I'll let the local biologist know. And normally the hatcheries, they do their own microscope work, but it can be, because you see the spikes on it, because the spikes, it can get caught in their gills and then kind of suffocate the salmon. And then this is just a picture of pollen. It looks kind of cool, and I would not think of pollen looking like that. It's kind of short. I apologize. But here's my contact info. And this is just one of the cool things. I had to use these pictures. These are king crabs. We found them February 2018 during one of our night digs. That's my friend Mayaka. She's currently living in Cape, but these were all female king crabs. And what we think they were doing is laying their eggs. We looked for a bunch of baby crabs later in the spring, but we only found a few. But this was the coolest thing I've ever seen out at the beach. There were hundreds everywhere. And just some of the cool things you can see during a night dig. That is my last slide.
Lindsay, just really quickly before we stop the recording for this picture that you have up, you said it was a night dig. Do you guys go out on like a full moon, or is there a certain time frame that you guys have to go out for a night dig?
Just whenever the tide is the lowest is the best. It can vary. I think tomorrow we have one that's at 8 p.m., but sometimes it can be as late as 10 p.m. Or for go-getters or other people in Southeast, they like doing the early morning ones at like 4 a.m. In Alaska, we're Southeast, so it's not as bad as up north, but we still have maybe 6 to 8 hours of daylight in fall and winter. So it's dark a lot of the time during the winter. That's why they're all night digs.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll go ahead and stop recording, and then we'll get started with our talking circle here in just a moment. So to get everybody oriented on that, basically